Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear friends and participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Teens. I believe it is the 25th session. We have been studying the text of the Quran since the last few sessions, and the importance of studying the text of the Quran, of course, is self-evident. And I have also been explaining this all along that in order to study the text of the Quran, it is advisable to have a fair idea of its contents. And in the absence of this fair idea, a person might feel as if a lot of things that are being discussed in the Quran might not relate to him. Specifically, I have been pointing out this fact that almost two-thirds of the Quran deals with idolatry and polytheism because of the fact that these were the conditions which prevailed in the times of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is particularly very relevant when people of the Abrahamic faith start reading the Quran. So if Jews and Christians and Muslims, they have exposure to the Quran, so they might not they might not gauge the fact that why is it that being monotheistic religions, all three of them, when they study the last book of God, the final testament of God, something they would have imagined to have certain things in them, and then they come across idolatry or certain things which are specific to an era and which perhaps no longer apply to at least the Abrahamic faiths. So you see, this is the catch here, that if you are not able to understand the background, the milieu in which the Quran was revealed, you will often end up finding this question bothering you, that what exactly is the relevance of a greater part of the Quran? How does it deal with me? What is the guidance that it provides me? So the answer that I have been giving is twofold. One, that the basic guidance regarding good and evil is something which the Quran does not concern itself with. The Almighty says that as far as good and evil are concerned, uh, mankind or every single human being is born with the cognizance, with the comprehension of good and evil. And a lot of things that go on in the world in which you have to decide what is morally right and what is morally wrong, you don't need to consult any scripture. It's all inbuilt in you. You find your conscience telling you what is right and what is wrong. So, the first answer to this is that a lot of things which the Almighty would like us to adopt are simply ingrained in us. We already know about them. And when the previous scriptures, including the Quran and the previous ones, they speak about morality, the purpose is not to inform us for the first time that these are our moral values. No, they are just meant to remind us. When they mention morality, the purpose is to remind us. So this is the first thing that any person who's reading the Quran must know, that if the Quran is guidance, then before that guidance, we have a very big chunk of guidance already inside of us. So what happens is that the Quran then is left with that top 30 or 40%, maybe, in which divine guidance is needed, in which the Almighty thinks, or of course, his verdict is that humankind is not capable enough to find a way out in certain areas. So therefore, it is in these certain areas, and they are very few and they are very select, that any guidance is needed. So this is one thing. If you make a note of this, then you realize that as far as the guidance of the Quran is concerned, it relates to that part in which human intellect can falter. Now, as far as idolatry is concerned, as far as polytheism is concerned, as I said, this was the spirit of time in the times of the Prophet Muhammad, and therefore people had to be dealt in a way. And the other important thing, or the second important thing that you might gauge when you start studying the Quran, is the actual topic of the Quran. So the topic of the Quran is a narration of the last miniature day of judgment that was set up on earth. And I've been talking about this all along. So that last miniature day of judgment, of course, was the last court of justice that was set up in the times of Prophet Muhammad. And the purpose was that the Almighty, before that greater day of judgment that we often tend to forget, sets up these miniature days of judgments in the times of his messengers. And on the basis of the truths and on the basis of the truths delivered by messengers, people are punished or rewarded in this world. So what happens is that the Quran has preserved this whole narrative in which the previous nations went through these miniature days of judgment in their respective times, and the last time this happened was in the times of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that whole narrative, that whole account has been preserved in the Quran. So once you pick up the Quran, you are actually reading that account, that how the Almighty set up that miniature day of judgment in the times of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for this, how he actually delivered the truth or communicated the truth to two of his main addressees. I mean, there were two addressees that he was primarily dealing with. So one were the idolaters, and they were mostly found in Mecca, and the other were the people of the book, and they were mostly found in Medina. So when you read the Quran, you'll find that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Almighty is talking to either the idolaters or the people of the book. And a rough division or a very oversimplified division would be that when in the 2/3 of the Quran, which was revealed in Mecca, the conversation was with the idolaters. And in 1/3 of the Quran, which deals with the people of the book who lived in Medina, you'll find that all their beliefs are discussed, and they are told that they are making mistake here and make mistake there, and they need to reform themselves here and make amends there. So primarily, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is addressing these two entities in different surahs. Now, the surah that we're going to discuss today is Surah An-Najm, which is the 53rd surah of the Quran. Here, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's exposure to the idolaters of Mecca is being discussed. So basically, his ministry in the Meccan period, Surah Najm, which is the 53rd surah, I just pointed this out, is a Meccan surah. It was revealed in Mecca. So therefore, the content of this surah relates to the idolaters, what they believed, how they believed. So remember, these idolaters were descendants of the Prophet Ishmael, and of course, before him, the Prophet Abraham. And since after the Prophet Ishmael, which is all, you can clearly see this is almost 2,500 years before the Prophet Muhammad actually arrived on the scene, they had no other divine messenger sent to them. So although Prophet Abraham and his son Prophet Ishmael, they were settled in Mecca, they settled in the land of Arabia as a unit, and they preached monotheism when Abraham settled his progeny in Mecca. But over a period of time, these Arabs, they got contaminated or incriminated by various idols, and they lost the teachings of monotheism, and they started to worship these idols. And as you would be knowing, that they placed several idols in the Kaaba, which was built by Prophet Abraham and Prophet Ishmael. So over a period of these 2,500 years, idolatry became rampant in Arabia. So now in this Surah An-Najm, what is happening is that the discourse in the surah is emanating from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's tongue. Of course, he's the one who's delivering it, but in fact, these are the words of God, and they address those primary issues which the idolaters of Mecca were actually going through, and they needed to be told that there are certain things that they are not doing correctly. Okay, with this background, I'll now start off to read the text of the surah, and I'm sure you must be having this text before you as well. So our methodology is the same as we generally adopt in each class, that I'll read out the Arabic text, and one of you would be reading the translations, and then I'll try to explain what the text says. So the words are: "Wan najmi iza hawa, ma dhalla sahibukum wa ma ghawa, wa ma yantiqu anil hawa, in huwa illa wahyun yuha, allamahu shadidul quwa, zu mirratin fastawa, wa huwa bil ufukil a'la. ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى."
In the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. The stars, when they fall, bear witness that your companion is neither lost nor has he gone astray. He does not speak of his own fancy. This Qur'an is but a revelation sent down on him. He has been taught by one mighty in power, towering in character, and endued in wisdom. Thus he appeared such that he was on the higher horizon. Then he drew near and bent down until he was within 2 bows' length or even closer. God then realized to his servant that which he revealed. Whatever he saw was not his heart's delusion. Then will you now quarrel with him over what he has seen with his eyes?
Thank you, Alicia, for this reading. So you can see that the surah starts off by calling the stars to witness. The stars, when they fall, bear witness that your companion is neither lost nor has he gone astray. So this phenomena has been discussed elsewhere in the Quran, that during the time of the revelation of the Quran, the evil spirits and the jinn folk, they would try to eavesdrop and find out what revelation is being sent down. And the Quran has told us at various instances in other surahs that whenever someone would try to catch what the revelation is all about, when Gabriel was bringing it down, so a shooting star would be pelted on that person, on that evil spirit, on that jinn, in order to ward him off. So this is precisely what is being stated here, that the stars bear witness that your companion, of course, the companion here refers to Prophet Muhammad, and the word kum, because it says sahibukum, which means your is, of course, the plural, signifying the fact that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was from among themselves. He was a person of their own nation. So remember the nation of Quraysh, which is a sub-tribe of the Ishmaelites, which is the Banu Ishmael, who are the progeny of Prophet Abraham from Ishmael, his son Ishmael. So it is said that your companion, which means he's your associate, someone that you know very well, this is absolutely wrong to believe that he has gone astray or he is actually fabricating the Quran from his own self. So remember, these idolaters, when they could not counter the eloquence of the Quran and they were not able to give an argument that how is it that someone is producing or the Almighty is sending down this book. So they would make up this excuse and they would work this propaganda that it's not that the Almighty is sending down any book to his chosen messenger, but he actually is fabricating something from his own fancy. It is he himself who works up certain words in his mind and then he delivers. So the Quran actually is refuting this whole notion here and calling it to be an absolutely baseless notion. And it tells everyone who was present there that look at this phenomena in which when these evil spirits and when these jinn folk or other beings like them, they try to eavesdrop, they try to gather information from Gabriel when he's bringing down the Quran. They are pelted away. They are bombarded with these shooting stars, and they just cannot come near this revelation. So don't think that it is something which the Prophet himself is producing, because as you can see, the next words are وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He does not speak out of his own fancy. It is that he is not making up this discourse himself. In huwa illa wahyun yuha. This is a revelation which is being sent down to him. So this is the introductory part of the surah, which is actually telling us that, or dispelling this notion of the idolaters who held this belief that the Prophet was actually making up the Quran himself, and it is not that this is something which is divine. Now the next few verses of this paragraph, and of course the next one as well, you'll find that the instance of the first revelation, the way Gabriel revealed that first revelation, is portrayed. So the words Allamahu Shadidul Quwa, which of course mean that he was taught by one mighty in power, towering in character, and endued with wisdom. These refer to the angel or the archangel Gabriel. And you know that Gabriel was the one who would bring down the revelations. And this first paragraph is a depiction of the first revelation. I mean, this is how Gabriel came down. He came close to the Prophet. As you can see, the words are, he appeared such that he was on the higher horizon. Then he drew near and bent down until he was within 2 bows length or even closer. So the point that is being made is that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was taught by an angel, it's not that it is something that he made up from his own self. It is not a flight of his fancy. No, this is not the case. But Gabriel actually, like a very affectionate teacher, the way a teacher would come close to his student, in the same manner, Gabriel came close to his student, and then he revealed what he revealed, which of course is a very, very common style of the Quran to point towards something important. So when you find these words that he revealed what he revealed, actually means that look how magnificent and how glorious is this revelation that is being sent down to Prophet Muhammad. And then this also is actually pointed out that it's not any delusion, it's not his heart's delusion that he is presenting something. It's not that he has been deluded into something. It's not that he's hallucinating or he's imagining things out of his own fancy. No, it is in fact Gabriel who has come down to him and taught him the Quran. So this picture or this portrayal, of course, is the portrayal of the first ever revelation. The content of that revelation, of course, we don't know, but this is a portrayal of how the first revelation took place. So it says, "Afatumarunahu ala ma yara." So the idolaters are addressed, and they are told that now will you quarrel with him, what he's seeing with his eyes? So remember that he saw Gabriel, and when Gabriel actually revealed the Quran, or started to reveal the Quran, of course, you know that the Quran was sent down to Prophet Muhammad in a period of 22 years. So this was actually the first revelation or the first episode of revelation that the Quran is talking about and referring to, and then giving this remark, passing this remark to the idolaters that "Fatumarunahu wala ma yara," then will you dispute or quarrel with him with what he's seeing with his eyes? So you just cannot deny what is being seen by the eyes, because the Prophet Muhammad is not making it up from his own fancy. Okay, now we move on to the next part, and that says, وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى عِنْدَ سِدْرَةِ الْمُنْتَهَى عِنْدَهَا جَنَّةُ الْمَأْوَى إِذْ يَغْشَى السِّدْرَةَ مَا يَغْشَى مَا زَاغَ الْبَصَرُ وَمَا طَغَى لَقَدْ رَآ مِنْ آيَاتِ رَبِّهِ الْكُبْرَى.
Mira, please go ahead and read the translation.
Yes. And he has seen him once again descending near the farthest lote tree, close to which is a paradise of repose, when the lote tree was being covered with that which was covering it. His sight did not falter, nor lost its poise. He has seen his Lord's greatest signs.
Okay, thank you, Amria, for this reading. So now this paragraph actually depicts the second meeting of Prophet Muhammad with Gabriel, as you can clearly see from the words "Walaqad ra'ahu nazlatan ukhra," which means, and he has seen him once again descending near the furthest low tree. So you can see these two instances. In the first instance, Gabriel came very close to the Prophet and revealed that first episode of revelation from the Almighty. Now, this paragraph is actually portraying the second revelation, or the second instance of revelation. The words of the revelation, of course, they are not being referred to here. Only a picture of how this revelation took place is mentioned here. And that is that Gabriel this time he didn't come close to the Prophet. He was there on the horizon. He was there near Sidratul Muntaha, which of course is the Lot tree. And this low tree is supposedly at the place where this world ends and the next world begins. So it's like on the border. And the paradise of repose is right there. And then is yakhsha sidrata ma yakhsha, and the low tree was being covered with that which was covering it. Of course, again referring to the fact that the manifestations and the various things which the Almighty wanted the Prophet to see, they were being displayed there. And again, once again, you'll find this, that ma zaghal basaru wa ma tagha, that in spite of this huge observation, or the sight and the spectacle that he saw, which was so overwhelming that a person could have been just knocked out. But no, this was not the case with Prophet Muhammad. His sight did not falter. Whatever he saw was absolutely a clear vision, and neither did his sight lose its poise. So it is as if he saw things very clearly, and he was not making them up or hallucinating in any way. And then the verse says, "Laqad ra'a min ayati rabbihil kubra." So the Almighty made the Prophet see a lot of his signs, so that once again he is convinced that the revelation that he is being sent to is by the Almighty himself. So you see, what happens is that when prophets of God, they receive revelations, so they are assured and they are made to think that whatever they are receiving is not something which is from their own self, but it is God who is revealing these things. So what God does is that he makes extra arrangements for them to get this assurance. He shows them his signs, he shows them various manifestations which actually make them understand that they have been chosen as God's messengers, and it is not that whatever they are presenting is actually being made up or fabricated by their own selves. So these first 18 verses of Surah An-Najm, again, you can clearly see that two instances, or the first two instances of divine revelation, or the first two episodes of divine revelations are pictured here. The difference between the two, you can see, is in the first, Gabriel came right close to the Prophet, very close to the Prophet, within two bows' length, as the verses say. But in the second instance, he was far away. The Prophet could see him, and in spite of that, he could. It's not that the distance blurred his vision in any way. He saw everything very clearly, and then the Almighty revealed various. He made him see his various signs. And another thing that you might wish to note here, which I think discussed in my last session, and that is that, remember that the surahs of the Quran, they are not named after the content that they are projecting. So Surah An-Najm is actually a surah in which the first verse of the Quran, which actually says "Wan najmi iza hawa," and because of the fact that the star is mentioned, in which as a star, the reason of mentioning it is that these stars, they are pelted at all those jinn and evil spirits who are trying to eavesdrop or trying to catch the revelation when it's being sent down, and that is all. You can clearly see that the rest of the surah has moved on to other areas of depiction, and as far as Najm is concerned, there's no further mention of the star in any part of the surah, as you will presently see. Once again, reinforcing the fact that basically the surahs of the Quran are not named after their content, but after a catchphrase, so to speak, which the Arabs would actually memorize, or they would fancy as something different, and they would just name the compositions after that catchphrase. Okay, now let's move on to the next part. Now, it says that أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى أَلَكُمُ الذَّكَرُ وَلَهُ الْأُنثَى تِلْكَ إِذًا قِسْمَةٌ ضِيزَى إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءٌ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ إِنْ يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَمَا تَهْوَى الْأَنفُسُ وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّن رَّبِّهِمُ الْهُدَى.
Amira, you are up next. Please read the translation of this passage.
Sorry. On the contrary, what is the source of whatever you believe in? Speak up. Have you ever pondered over the reality of this Lat and Uzza and the third, Manat, which is second in rank? You call them daughters of God, glory be to God. For your own selves are sons, and for him daughters. So this would be a very unjust division. No, these are but names that you and your fathers have invented. God has not revealed any proof in their favor. Alas, their foolishness! They merely follow conjectures and fancies of their souls, even though there has already come to them a manifest guidance from their Lord.
So thank you, Amira, for reading this. Now you see, the surah shifts to another part, and that is the deities which the Arabs used to wish. So these three deities that you can see, Lat, Uzza, and Manat, they are the names of three idols who they thought were the idols representing certain angels as well, and they would grant their wishes. So these they had a very it's an important place in certain tribes. So some of them believed in Lat, another one in Uzza, another one in Manat, and of course, as you can clearly see, that their ranks and their status is also referred to here, and they were called the daughters of God, and they were worshipped as if they were daughters of God. And the Quran actually tells them that, well, What a strange thing that you don't prefer daughters for your own selves. So remember, the Arabs did not like that daughters would be born to them, because to them, it's the that primary importance, because as a tribal, the birth of a son, because he could be someone who would be able to support his father in all the wars and the battles which would go on. And the irony here that is being pointed out is that while they themselves ascribing daughters to God, and this is a strange thing that they are doing, that they worship God to be a supreme deity. They know that he's the supreme deity. Of course, they have partners with him, but what they're doing is that what they don't like for themselves, they like for for God himself. And it says that in here, illa asma'un sammaytumuha antum wa aba'ukum. So these are merely names. They don't have any existence. You have invented these names. They are all hypothetical. They are all, they are all unreal, which they have invented. And as the verse says, abaukum, that their fathers and their forefathers have invented, about which they have no proof that they are God's partners. So you see, the thing which the Quran mentions repeatedly, time and again, is that if there was more than one God, the only knowledge of that more than one God could have been given by God himself. And since he never gave this information, how is it that people on earth are ascribing those partners to God? What is the source of their information? Only God could have been then that source. And since God has not disclosed this information, they are actually ascribing falsehood to God. And that is why polytheism is considered to be an unforgivable sin. And then the Quran actually moves on by telling us that إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَمَا تَهْوَى الْأَنفُسُ, that this is all conjecture. These are all fancies of your souls. These deities that you have created, these idols that you worship, they have no sanction before from God. They are all from your own mind that you have created them. And this is in spite of the fact that God's guidance has come to them in the form of the Quran. Now, you might like to note here, my dear friends and participants, that it is precisely here that those satanic verses that you must have heard of, which have been, of course, there is a novel by Salman Rushdie, and there are several other people who have pointed this out because of the fact that our own tafsir books have mentioned it. It is said that while these verses were being revealed, there were a couple of more verses. Such was the impact of these verses that the Prophet actually fell down in prostration before them. And the satanic verses exactly were that tilkal gharanikul ula wa inna shafa'atuhum la turtaja, that these are the exalted deities, and their intercession is something which is always hoped for. So it is said that they were also revealed, and the Prophet and the people who were receiving, when the Prophet revealed these verses, he fell down in prostration. And this was something which was actually inspired to him by the devil or by Satan and not by God. And hence they came to be known as the Satanic Verses. But as you can clearly see, that this is a story which has been made up. And if you look up some of our exegetical works, you'll find them that they are mentioned in a way which is not authentic at all. This is not my topic of today, but I just wanted to point this out, that if ever you come across this term of satanic verses, do remember that this is something which is mentioned in our tafsir books, but the whole episode is not is totally unfounded. But because of the fact that it has been mentioned, it has given this credence to the fact that yes, well, these were revealed to the Prophet, and he actually maybe the first part was inspired by God, and the second part, in which he actually fell down in prostration to these deities, was revealed by Satan, and hence they were called satanic verses. They don't exist here, of course. As I said, they're outside the Quran, and I just recited them. The words are tilkal gharanikul ula, that these are the supreme deities. Wa inna shafa'atuhum la turtaja. These are the two verses which are outside the Quran. They're allegedly outside the Quran. Of course, we know from our own research that they never existed, but they have been falsely created. But as I said, once the thing is created and it comes into existence and somehow finds its way into our tafsir books, then people are given this opportunity to make up all kinds of stories about them. And you can read more about these when you pick up Surah An-Najm. You just pick up any, or even just type it in the internet and type the word Satanic Verses, you'll get a lot of information that how during the course of revelation of these verses of Surah An-Najm, those Satanic verses are allegedly, or people think allegedly they have been revealed, but as far as I'm concerned, you can clearly see for your own selves as well that they have absolutely no foundation and they are totally unfounded. Okay, so now let's move on to the next part. It says, "Am lil insani ma tamanna falillahi al-akhiratu wal ula wa kam min malakin fis samawati la tughni shafa'atuhum shay'an illa min ba'di an ya'zana Allahu liman yasha'u wa yarda."
Ahsan, it's your turn. Please go ahead and read the translation.
Uh, Let them invent whatever they desire, but will a person attain all that he desires? Certainly not. Therefore, they should remember that the herein and the hereafter all are under the control of God alone. His laws do not change because of anyone's desire. And what to speak of their deities? How many angels are there in the heavens whose intercession will be of no avail until God gives permission to whom he wants and for whom he likes.
Well, thank you for that. So, also, whenever you read this translation and you find any word which is difficult, any one of you who's reading it, he's or she's free to ask any word that might be difficult. Although I try to explain the word, but still, if there is any word that you'd like to have it explained more, just let me know, please. Now, as far as this section is concerned, actually, it continues with this previous topic that had been brought up, and the word insan you can clearly see, and because of the fact that you know Urdu and perhaps Arabic to this extent that you know that the word insan actually refers to a human being. But do remember this fact that whenever the word insan is mentioned the way it is here in all in the Quran, it does not refer to every human being. And the word insan, as is the case here, it refers to specific people, but they're not actually named. So a precise translation would be that will this person attain what he desires? I mean, this person would be that these idolaters who are standing right in front of Prophet Muhammad and they are denying that the Almighty is one and they are associating partners. And for this, they have no proof. They have no argument. All that they are doing is that they are making up these deities, they are making up these partners of God. So remember, the word al-insan is used in a very specific sense. So if I would say, will this man or this human being standing right here, or will these human beings, they have whatever they desire? Of course, their desire is that they would be forgiven if there's going to be a hereafter, and their angels or their deities. Remember, their deities were basically angels. They used to worship these angels and they would regard them to be daughters of God. So they are being told that look, what you are doing. You're just imagining something. You're just inventing and desiring something, and you should remember that this is absolute conjecture. It has nothing to do with reality, because to the to God belongs this world and the next world. So the herein is the word that is used for this world, and hereafter, as you all know, is the next world. So herein refers to this world, and hereafter refers to the next world. So the verse says that they are both in the control of God. Don't think that if the hereafter is going to come, then these deities which you worship are going to save you. So you see, the Arab concept was, the concept of these idolaters was that if they worship these angels or these deities as daughters of God, these daughters of God are very close to God Himself. And if they worship them, then they will be able to secure a high position for them in the hereafter, if ever the hereafter is going to come. So these idolaters actually said, or actually believed, that there is not going to be any hereafter. They thought that this life is all that there is. But if ever there is going to be a hereafter, if ever the hereafter is going to come, then these angels, which they are worshipping as daughters of God, will have them protected from God's anger, and they will be given a high place in the next world as well. And it is therefore it is said here that وَكَمْ مِنْ مَلَكٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ لَا تُغْنِي شَفَاعَتُهُمْ, that if you think that these angels will intercede for you, intercession, of course, is something in which you win the favor of God by telling God that, well, on my recommendation, on my behalf, please forgive such and such a person. So what the Quran is pointing out here is that, do you think that this is going to happen, that these angels are going to recommend you for paradise and for a high position, whereas the situation is that all these angels, they cannot speak to God regarding someone, regarding recommending someone, unless God himself tells us that, well, or tells the angels or informs them, yes, now you can speak. And again, whatever for whichever person he would like those angels to speak, would be pointed out by them. So this whole concept of shafaat, which is of course called intercession, which means that someone is going to intercede or someone is going to recommend for another person, is grossly misunderstood, and the Quran is clear here that this intercession is only going to take place, or this recommendation perhaps is going to take place for people who are borderline cases. Maybe they have equal good deeds and equal number of bad deeds, and the Almighty actually wished for them to enter paradise, and He would like people to actually He would honor His messengers or other people to recommend such people towards paradise, which He had already decided for themselves, for these people. But in order to honor them, He is giving this choice to them. So basically, intercession is not going to make some evil into good or good into evil. It's just a status of honor or a position of honor given to a prophet of God. That, well, if you think that I should forgive such and such a person, whereas the Almighty would have already decided, because as I said, these were mostly would be people who would have equal number of good and bad deeds, and God's mercy would wish that people who are equally good or bad, they would be forgiven. So just to give that honor and respect to His messengers, He would ask them, well, should I forgive these? As I said, He would have already decided to forgive them, and He would just be asking these messengers to, so that they are given this honor and respect. So this is as far as intercession is concerned. But the point to note in this paragraph, which I just said initially, was that always remember when you're reading the Quran, the translation, and you see the word humankind or mankind being translated, more often than not, it refers to a particular or a specific chunk of people. It's not all mankind, because you see, when the word is insan, you tend to believe that every person has the same is being dealt with here, or is being referred to here. No. So only those people are being dealt with here who actually believed in these deities. You can clearly see that not everyone is believing in these deities. So such is the context, that it tells you how a particular word is not used in its general sense, but it's used in a specific sense. And this we do in our own language as well. And it's something that's very common to us. When we say, well, look at this person, and we look at all these people, and our purpose is actually to refer to some of the people that we talked just earlier on. If I am talking to my class and I say, well, look at these people, look at all these people. So you see, my context is the people to whom I'm already addressing, and they were all there. But since the word "look at all these people" have been used, a reader gets this notion that perhaps all mankind is being referred to. No, the word "all" itself has a context. Okay. Now let's move on to the next part, and it says, "Inna allazina la yu'minuna bil akhirati la yusammuna al malaikata tasmiyata al unsa, wama lahum bihi ilm min ilm in yattabi'una illa adh-dhann wa inna adh-dhanna la yughni min al-haqqi shay'a fa'a'rid 'amman tawalla an zikrina wa lam yurid illa al-hayata ad-dunya dhalika mablughuhum min al-ilm inna rabbaka huwa a'lamu biman dhalla an sabilihi وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اهْتَدَى."
Rahil Bashir, you are up next.
Those who do not believe in the hereafter, it is they who give the angels the names of women, yet of this they have no knowledge. They are merely following conjecture, and
Right.
conjecture can never replace the truth. Therefore, O Prophet, turn away those who have turned away from our reminder and who seek nothing but the life of this world. This is the farthest limit of their knowledge. Leave them not to themselves. Undoubtedly, your Lord fully knows those who have strayed from His path and those too who are on His guidance.
Thank you for this reading. So the word conjecture actually means speculation, something which is not based on facts. It's just an estimate. It's just an idea, a rough thing. So in case anyone would like to know the meaning of conjecture. So it says that those who do not believe in the hereafter, it is they who give the angels the names of women. So you see, as we just earlier on referred to, that the Lat, Manat, and Uzza, the three deities, they're all names of women, and they are basically called by Arabs as angels who were females, who were women, and they were actually called to be partners of God. And as the Quran says, that they have no knowledge of it; they are just speculating, and speculation can never replace the truth. It's just an idea that they have given, and it's an absolutely wrong idea. And now the Prophet has said, well, look at these people, that they are making up these things without any foundation. So therefore, you should leave them alone to themselves. Turn away from these people. You have done enough to remind them, and they have all that they have before them is to seek the life and the pleasures of this world. They don't believe in the hereafter. And when they are told that there is going to be a hereafter, they just make fun of it. And therefore, the Quran says that this is the extent of their knowledge. This is the farthest limit. In spite of being told by the Quran and by the Prophet that this is insufficient knowledge, there is going to be another world, they just don't believe in it in spite of all these arguments and in spite of being convinced themselves. And therefore, God says, "Inna rabbaka huwa a'lamu biman zalla an sabilihi," that your Lord, of course, the address is towards the Prophet, that, "O Prophet, your Lord fully knows those who have strayed from his path and those who are on his guidance." So it is clearly God's prerogative. It is his uh, authority and his knowledge which is going to prevail. He informs Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, remember, you don't have to make any decision on your own self. God knows who is on the right path and God knows who have gone astray. So if I am telling you that you leave these people aside because of the fact that you have done enough, then don't think that it is you who have fallen short of your responsibility. No, it is these people who have shut off their eyes and their hearts and all their other faculties. Okay, we now move on to the next part. It says, وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيَجْزِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسَاءُوا بِمَا عَمِلُوا وَيَجْزِيَ الَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا بِالْحُسْنَى الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشَ إِلَّا اللَّمَمَ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ وَاسِعُ الْمَغْفِرَةِ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِكُمْ إِذْ أَنشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ وَإِذْ أَنتُمْ أَجِنَّةٌ فِي بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى.
Daniel, it's your turn.
Whatever is in the heavens and in the earth is in the jurisdiction of God alone. The result of this will only be that he punish the evildoers for their deeds and bestow a good reward on those who did good deeds, who abstain from major sins and open
Indecent.
indecencies, except they became a little contaminated for a while. He will forgive them. Your Lord surely is vast in mercy. Progeny of Adam, you think highly of yourselves. In reality, he knows you well from the time when he raised you from the earth and when you were still a fetus in your mother's wombs. Therefore, ascribe not purity to yourselves. It is piety which is a means of honor for you, and he knows very well those who adhere to piety.
So thank you, Daniel, for this reading. And now the discourse or the surah shifts towards another topic which directly emanates from what we have just read. And it says that, well, you think that you have created these deities and ascribed them to God, whereas the situation is that the heavens and the earth are under God's jurisdiction. And because of the fact that He has made this world, so therefore He's not going to leave people go scot-free. He is going to reward or punish them according to what they have done. So the creation of the heavens and the earth themselves show that this world is not going to continue like it is doing so at the moment, but it is going to end sometime, and people who have done good will be rewarded, and people who have done evil shall be punished. And then there is a verse which actually tells us that how these believers they spend their lives, and it says that allazina yajtanibuna kabair al ismi wal fawahish, that these are the people who abstain from major sins. So kabair means major sins, And then fawahish means vulgarities and indecencies and lustful activities. So the Quran says that, well, these are the people who secure themselves, who save themselves from these major sins. They don't indulge. Yes, at times they do indulge in a very, very brief way, and then they just come out of them. So you see, this verse is like an assurance to all of us that while we might abstain from these major sins and these open indecencies and vulgarities, but it does happen that as far as these vulgarities are concerned, at times we just get incriminated for them for a short period of time. So a lamam means a short period of time, and you immediately realize, well, I was doing something wrong, and you come out of it. So the point that is being made here is that it's that, of course, as human beings, we are required to abstain from lust and lewdness and from vulgar things. But it does happen that at times we just get contaminated by them. We just step into them. It's out of frenzy, and we just don't realize. But immediately after that, we come out and we make amends. So again, this is a form of God's mercy that in spite of this, that we stepped into these sins for a short period of time and we came out. The Almighty says, "Inna rabbaka wasi'ul maghfirah," that your Lord is vast in mercy and He's going to forgive you for being for having indulged in these sins for a short while. And as I said, it actually refers to these lustful activities. And then it says that He is your Lord who created you first from the earth, because we know that our progenitor, or the first human being, he was directly created. And then it says that the rest of us were created through, of course, our mother's womb. So what is being told here is that, remember that this is how you all came into existence. And Almighty knows from where you came. He, in fact, created you. So, فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, don't claim to be pious. Because as far as human beings are, as far as being human is concerned, it just takes a small thing to lead ourselves astray. A short click of maybe the computer, and you're just led out to other places. So don't think that if you are able to overcome yourself and you've become a pious person, then you'll remain pious the whole of your life. No, this is a constant struggle. If you have attained piety, if you have become a good person, then this is not something which is a permanent state. You are constantly being tested and bombarded with various things in which you have to resist and therefore make your way through them. So don't claim yourselves to be too pious, because as God says, He knows who the people are who actually adhere to piety. So don't make a show of your piety. God very well knows who are pious from inside. So next part is أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي تَوَلَّى وَأَعْطَى قَلِيلًا وَأَكْدَى أَعِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ الْغَيْبِ فَهُوَ يَرَى أَمْ لَمْ يُنَبَّأْ بِمَا فِي صُحُفِ مُوسَى وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ الَّذِي وَفَّى أَلَّا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى ثُمَّ يُجْزَاهُ الْجَزَاءَ الْأَوْفَى وَأَنَّ إِلَى رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى.
They are in a grievous misconception. So did you see the person who turned his back and after giving a little from the sustenance given to him by God held back? He thinks that in the hereafter too he will be given a high status. Has he the knowledge of the unseen? Thus he is seeing his status. Has he not received the news of what is in the scriptures of Moses and of Abraham too, who is befittingly loyal? That no soul shall bear another's burden, and that a man shall only receive in the hereafter what he has earned in this world, and that whatever he has earned shall soon be examined. He shall then be fully rewarded, and that finally the return shall be to your Lord alone.
So, as you can see, that the surah moves on and says that as far as their thought is concerned, that they are pious and they can pose towards piety. God says, well, don't make this, don't indulge into this display. God knows who the pious are, and then it is as if a person is being portrayed. And you can specifically see that these are the people of the times of Prophet Muhammad who would typically do something and then would withdraw. So you see, the verses says that, so did you see the person who turned his back and after giving a little held back? So this is the picture of a person who would like to impress other people by actually boasting that he had spent a lot, and then while giving something a little, he would just hold back as if you would think that this is sufficient, that whatever I have given is sufficient. So he is being posed this question, that does he think that in the hereafter also he'll be given a higher rank? Because you see, these people held a very successful life, they maintain a very successful life in this world, and they thought that if this is how they are being given in this world, then there is no reason that they would have the same rank and position in the next world. And it is on this notion that the Quran actually rebukes them, or scolds them, and says that how do you know that in the next world also you'll have the same rank and status? Why? Because this status which is given to them in this world, or this rank which is given to them in this world, is a test and a trial for them. And how can they say that the same rank and position would be given to them, or the same successful life will be given to them in the next world? And then it says, Am lam yunabba bima fi suhufi Musa. Now, you see, previous scriptures are being referred to, and this is a good time to actually point to the fact that how the Quran actually refers to previous scriptures. The Sahifa of Moses, of course, is the Old Testament, or the Torah, and the scripture of Abraham, of course, is someone is a scripture that we have. We don't. It's not extant, but we know that part of it exists in the first book of the Old Testament. So the thing which is brought up here is that whatever is being said here is absolutely true. That a person is not going to be given a position because of the fact that someone is going to speak on his behalf, or because he occupies a high rank and position in this world. Because it is written in the previous scriptures also that a person is going to be given what he has strived for himself. It's not that other people are going to make him enter into a better position. No. Whatever you get in the next world is because what you have done in this world. No other person can be of help to you in that world. You cannot bear the burden of the other person. It's got to be your own doing that you will be facing in the next world, and your whatever you have done will be made known to you. An-nasariyahu sawfa yura. And then you will be given its full recompense. Whatever you did will be paid back to you in full. And remember, wa anna ila rabbikal muntaha, that you will be made to go back to your Lord. So if you pick up these verses, which says, wa Ibrahim allazi waffa. So from verse 38 to verse 42, this is the content which the Quran is referring to as being mentioned in the previous scriptures. So the Quran tells us that, look, this is not what I'm telling you, or what the Quran is telling you, is not something new. The previous scriptures also say that you'll be getting what you strive for, and that you'll definitely be present before your Lord. Remember, these idolaters, they had both these beliefs which were wrong. One, that they'll be able to secure the intercession or the recommendation of their deities, which are daughters of God, and they will be doing, and even if they have done bad things, they will be saved in the hereafter. And two, they actually thought, well, there is not going to be any hereafter at all. So they had both these notions, and the Quran has actually said, well, that this is not something which the Quran is informing them. So their progenitor Abraham. So actually, these Arabs, they used to believe in Abraham to be the forefather, and if anything would be conveyed to them on behalf of Abraham, they had to believe it, because this is how they were. They regarded Abraham to be a very worthy ancestor of theirs. So they are being told that if you regard Abraham to be someone who is really, really supreme ancestor that you refer to, then look what Abraham's scripture tells us. Abraham's scripture tells us that one day you'll be meeting your Lord. Ila rabbikal muntaha. So don't think that there's not going to be a hereafter. There is going to be a hereafter, and it's not that the Quran is telling them this the first time. Abraham has already told them in their own scripture. And the second thing is that their deities are not going to intercede for them. These idols are not going to secure themselves against God. No, whatever you do yourselves in this world is going to make you punished, or God will have you punished or rewarded as a result. So this is how the Quran actually refers to previous scriptures and tells them that I have not brought anything new. And if you are indulging in idol worship, remember, this is something that you're doing against what your own forefather told you. And if you think that there is not going to be a hereafter, then again, this is against what your forefather told you, because you believe in that forefather, his teachings. So therefore, look, his teachings tell us that there are no idols, And his teachings tell us that one day all of us will come in the presence of God and be held accountable for our deeds. Okay. وأنه هو أضحك وأبكى وأنه هو أمات وأحيا وأنه خلق الزوجين الذكر والأنثى من نطفة إذا تمنى وأن عليه النشأة الأخرى وأنه هو أغنى وأقنى وأنه هو رب الشعرى.
Atma and Ariba, it's your turn.
And moreover, that it is he who makes people laugh and makes them weep, and that it is he who gives death, and he who gives life, and that it is he who creates a pair of male and female from a drop when it is poured forth, and that upon him is the second bringing forth, and that it is he who bestows and enriches, and that it is he who is the Lord of Sirius.
So is this Fatima or Ariba?
Fatima.
Okay, Fatima, thank you for this reading. Okay, so now the authority and the power of God is actually brought about, as actually depicted, and people are being told that look at the authority of God. It is He who makes people laugh. It is He who makes people cry or weep. Again, referring to the fact that the circumstances on the basis of which people are happy or they are sad, they are all ordained by Him. It is not by their deities, it was not by their angels who they worship. No, it's God who is creating these circumstances. And it is He who gives life and it is He who gives death. And it is He who has created the male and the female species from a drop of fluid, of course. And then it is He who is going to create them again. So don't think that there is not going to be any creation. If God has created you for the first time, it's easier for Him to create you another time. And also don't remember that as far as wealth is concerned, as far as poverty is concerned, it is He who does that. Aghna wa aqna means that He who bestows, who gives you, and it is He who enriches you. And then He is also the Lord of Sirius. Now, Sirius was a star that the Arabs used to really relish because of the fact that it would appear in spring and it would signal a lot of prosperity for them, and they would worship them and worship the star. And the Quran tells them, well, the star that you are worshipping itself owes its existence to God. So instead of prostrating before Him, or before that star, because it's providing prosperity, you should consider the fact that that star itself has been created by the Almighty. So remember these, you can clearly see how connected this is to the Arab society, because they were the people who used to have these emotions attached to the star of Sirius. So again, this is something of a very localized information that you're getting, because the Arabs were people who were into star worship, and they used to worship these various heavenly bodies. But they are being told that whatever you're doing, you're not realizing that all of these things that they are worshiping, they have not been created themselves, or they are not self-created, but they have been created by another supreme being. And you just need to look behind these creatures, and they have all been wrongly imputed by you. Okay, next part. وأنه أهلك عادا الأولى وثمود فما أبقى وقوم نوح من قبل إنهم كانوا هم أظلم وأطغى والمؤتفكات أهوى فغشاها ما غشا فبأي آلاء ربك تتمارى.
Okay, we'll move on to Manahil.
And that is He who destroys the ancient Ad and the Thamud too, sparing none, and before them the people of Noah also. This is because they were all extremely unjust and rebellious. And He also rooted the overthrown city of the people of Lot. Then He covered them with what covered them. Now speak up, which of your Lord's marvels will you keep quarreling about?
So thank you for this reading. Manahil, thank you very much for your reading. So now the discourse or the surah shifts to the historical evidence that is there of God's miniature days of judgment, which I just spoke of earlier when I was just about to begin the lesson. You see, the previous nations, they were destroyed when they actually denied the Almighty, or if they didn't deny Him, then they associated other partners with Him, and also they denied His respective messengers. They were destroyed in this world. So there were these miniature days of judgment being created in the times of all these messengers of God, and the final day of judgment, or the final miniature day of judgment, was the one which took place in the times of Prophet Muhammad. So the Quran actually is addressing the Quraysh, the people who were there, the idolaters, the idol worshippers. And the Quran is telling them, well, if you are doing something which is of the same sort as your earlier predecessors, the earlier nations, like the nations of Ad. Now, Ad was a very ancient Arab tribe. I mean, it was an Arab nation actually, and the idolaters or the idol worshippers of Arabia of the times of the Prophet very well knew them. They knew the Ad, they knew the Samud, they knew the history of Noah, and they knew that all of them were not spared by the Almighty when they denied their messengers. So these idolaters or these idol worshippers are being told that if, like them, you too indulge in the same thing, and you also intentionally deny a prophet of God or a messenger of God, then your fate is not going to be any different, because they were azlama wa atgha. They were extremely unjust and rebellious, and you are also now being unjust and rebellious. So if he routed them, routed means that he destroyed them, then he's going to destroy you. And here the reference of wal mu'tafikata ahwa means, which means the overthrown city of the people of Lot, of course. The people of Lot, they were destroyed through a stone hurling wind, a huge tempestuous storm. And the Arabs also very well knew them. They passed by their ruined remains. And then فَغَشَّاهَا مَا غَشَّا means, of course, and they were destroyed, and such was their utter state of helplessness that can be seen. And فَبِأَيِّ عَلَاءِ رَبِّكَ تَتَمَارَى, so which of your Lord's marvels will you keep quarreling about? So if you see how your God has been very harsh on these nations, and before them he has dealt with them in this way, then they should also see that their own fate will not be any different. So basically, this paragraph is a historical allusion. It tells the idolaters that you are not someone new. If you do the same what the previous nations have done, then you shall also be destroyed. But remember, in the case of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu as we know from the Quran, that almost all of the nation of Arabia, or of the nation of the Prophet's times, they accepted Islam. So therefore, they were spared this humiliation. And this was an exception, of course, barring a few people who still denied, but almost all of the Arabs of those times, they accepted faith, and therefore they were spared this punishment. Okay, next part, and this is the last paragraph of the surah. It says, هَذَا نَذِيرٌ مِّنَ النُّذُرِ الْأُولَى أَزِفَتِ الْآزِفَةُ لَيْسَ لَهَا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ كَاشِفَةٌ أَفَمِنْ هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ وَتَضْحَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ وَأَنْتُمْ سَامِدُونَ فَاسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ وَاعْبُدُوا.
Please go ahead, read the translation.
This is a warner like those before. What was to arrive has arrived. No one except God can avert it. So do you express wonder at this that we have said? Laugh and not weep. Inebriated with
arrogance.
With arrogance, you are in a state of indifference. So wake up and prostrate before God and worship Him.
Thank you, Maria, for this reading. So it says, Haza Nazirun min an-nuzur al-ula. Nazir means a warner, someone who warns, and the reference here is to the Quran. So the Quran is actually referring to itself and says, well, this is a warner, and it is a warner like those before you. And like the previous scriptures, they have been a source of warning that if people don't mend their ways, then they are going to be destroyed. So this is also the same category. The Quran is not telling them something new. You see, one of the areas that we have to look into is that the message which the Quran has brought forth is not different from from the message which was presented by the previous scriptures, because the claim of the Quran is that it is not the first book of Islam, it is the final book of Islam, the last book of Islam, and Islam was a religion which was preached by every single messenger of God, and every single messenger had the same thing to convey to all their nations, and therefore this warner or this Quran is of the same category of books as were the previous books. Now what has to arrive has arrived. Azifatil Azifa actually refers to the worldly punishment which is going to visit these nations of messengers. Remember, we have been discussing this, that this miniature day of judgment, which I call, of course, is referring to that small day of judgment which is set up in the times of every messenger of God. And if their people deny it, then it is at hand. It is something which is going to come immediately. So here again it is said that if you deny, then what has to arrive has arrived. It means the punishment is going to just dismember you, just decimate you. And laysa laha min dunillahi kashifa, except God, nothing can avert that. So therefore, you are making fun of this Quran, and inebriated with arrogance means intoxicated with arrogance. You are overcome with this arrogance. You are so proud and so conceited that you think that nothing is going to happen. You are in a state of indifference. And so therefore, it is befitting for you. It is only right for you to get up, to take account of your deeds and prostrate before God and worship Him. And I can tell you, if any one of you understand the Arabic, such is the powerful nature of these words of this last paragraph that it simply makes our hair rise on ends, and it makes us realize that how the Quran actually called upon these people, these nations of our yesteryears, of the times of the Prophet Muhammad, of his previous times, and made this point to them that they should try to get up from their slumber. They should awaken from their slumber, because what they are doing is going to lead them to a huge pit of destruction. So this brings us to the end of the study of this surah. Once again, making this point that when you're reading the Quran, you have to understand that the content that is being brought before you is the content which the Arabs of the times of the Prophet were used to. We have discussed this surah again in the light of the fact that the Arabs had certain beliefs, and the primary beliefs, as you must have noted from this surah, was that they used to worship angels, and they would regard these angels to be daughters of God, and they would think that there's not going to be any accountability, and if there is going to be any hereafter, then their deities are going to secure them, they are going to save them. But the Almighty says that as far as this accountability is concerned, this is not something new. It's not that the Quran is telling them for the first time. They believe in Abraham. They regard him to be a very, very prominent and a supreme leader of their clan. And this is something which Abraham already told them, that there is going to be a hereafter. Anna ila rabbikal muntaha. You are going to reach your Lord. It's not that the Quran is telling this for the same time. So this is how you can see that the surah has progressed. Now, a couple of questions that come to mind, and I'd like anyone who would like to answer them. So I was discussing that as far as the surah is concerned, it does mention that how the Prophet was educated. So any one of you who could point out that where exactly in this surah does it speak of how the Prophet was taught for the first time, or the first revelation was sent to him? So we just started the surah. We just discussed this surah, and I did point out at one instance that this is how the first meeting of Prophet Muhammad with Archangel Gabriel, who was bringing down revelations to him, is mentioned. So anyone who could point out exactly where in the surah this whole incident is referred to? Nida Aziz, anything that comes to your mind?
At the start of the surah?
Right. So the start of the surah. And Amira, could you tell us that, of course, there was another instance in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was able to meet Gabriel, and where exactly is that?
So in the surah following.
And what's the difference between these two meetings? And any blatant difference?
The first surah has a meeting in which Jibreel is closer to Prophet Muhammad. And
Right.
in the second meeting, he's on the horizon, so he's far away.
Absolutely correct, Amira. Wonderful. So clearly, in the first meeting, Gabriel is right close to the Prophet, signaling this fact that something which has come to him is not a flight of his fancy, he's not hallucinating, he's not imagining. It's Gabriel who has gone right close to him and taught him like an affectionate teacher does. Whereas once this had happened, the second time, Gabriel never came close to the Prophet, and he was far away in the horizon. And then the Almighty, of course, showed him various signs. Okay, one more question, and that is that anyone who would like to point out to one of the very basic beliefs of these idolaters, which is referred to in this surah. Of course, the surah refers to several things which they believed and which have been refuted. So, anyone who would say one of those beliefs which the Quran has refuted, which these idolaters or these idol worships professed. Yes, Sine, go ahead.
They believed that they were angels.
Mm-hmm. So they believed that these deities were actually angels who were daughters of God. Not only angels, but these angels were daughters of God, and being daughters of God, they would win favor for them when the hereafter comes. And does any one of you remember the remark what was made by the Quran or the Almighty Himself regarding this ascription of daughters of God to God? So there was a thing which the Quran said about them. Anyone remembers that?
Sir, is it that there were no intercessions that would be made?
Well, that was one thing, but the thing that I'm talking about is that when they said that God has daughters, and there was a rejoinder, there was an answer given by the Quran.
They said that they used to bury their own daughters, so they didn't think of them highly. So then, if they think that angels were God's daughter and they themselves had sons, so what were they ascribing to God?
Yeah, absolutely correct, Amira. Well done once again. So yes, they thought that how strange it is that when they regard God to be a high, someone very high, and they don't even like daughters for themselves. And why is it that they are ascribing daughters to God when they don't like daughters for themselves? Of course, this doesn't mean that daughters or sons are someone which are being referred to. The only thing is that this contradiction is being pointed out. That one thing that they don't even like for themselves, they would not like daughters to be born to them. And now what they are doing is that they are uh, ascribing daughters to God. So thank you very much, Amira, for this. Okay, folks, thank you very much once again. I think we have read through this surah, and as I said, that the best thing would be if you get the chance, please do revise this surah. And if there is a question that comes up, of course, you can always contact me personally or maybe in the next class as well. But a good thing
Dr.
would be
Shehzad,
that, yes.
I believe Nida has another question to ask.
Okay, please, Nida, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, do angels have gender?
We are not, we don't know about that. And as far as the Quran is concerned, it doesn't talk about any female angel or male angel. All it talks about is angel. So this is something that we'll get to know when if we get a chance to meet them. So as far as the current information which is available in the Quran is concerned, we just cannot say whether they have genders or not.
We have
I
another
have
question.
another question. Yeah.
Right. Please go
So
ahead.
in this surah, they mentioned the intercessions.
Mhm.
So in Islam, is there anyone who can provide intercessions?
So I just explained that also, that as far as intercession is concerned, it would mean a recommendation on the basis of which, I mean, out of merit, instead of relying on merit, you just rely on a recommendation. So the Quran actually criticizes such a concept. It says that you cannot surpass or you cannot override the merit system which has been in place. A person shall be rewarded or judged on the basis of a person's deeds. However, yes, there is a case that at times people have good and bad deeds in equal number. So what should happen to such people? So about such people, it is said that if pious people or for example, prophets of God, they intercede for such people who have equal number of good and bad deeds, then the Almighty would forgive such people because His mercy would have already decided that such people should be forgiven. But basically, in order to just give this position of honor to messengers of God, as if asking them, well, if you recommend, then I'll forgive them. But as I said, this is something which the Quran says. And another thing is that for intercession to take place, intercession is basically a support given to someone who has already asked for someone. It's not something of a first origin. For example, if I pray that God forgive me and someone else reinforces or helps me in this prayer, yes, God, you also forgive them, then the word intercession or shafa, which is the Arabic word, actually means this reinforcement. So the two points I'm making here. One is that generally people think that shafaat or intercession means a person is going to just come forward and maybe say, well, you can please forgive this person. No, this is not going to happen. First of all, the forgiveness part has to be made by the person himself. The request of forgiveness has to be made by the person himself. And then someone other can reinforce that forgiveness, that yes, I second that. It's like that. That's the first point. And the second point is that this intercession or this support will always take place regarding people about whom, as I said, they would be the ones who have equal number of good and bad deeds, and it would be just a question of asking other people and honoring them as if their request is being of support has been honored and the person has been forgiven. It's not going to override any system of merit or justice. So if these two things are kept in mind, then this is what the concept of intercession or shafara of the Quran is.
Do
Nida,
you have another question?
so Nida, is that clear, or would you need some more explanation?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
And Amira, you have another question?
Yes, can you explain this part again? Have you ever pondered over the reality of this Lat and Uzza and the third Manat, which is second in rank?
So these were the three deities, Lat, Manat, and Uzza. They were the three deities of the various tribes of Arabia, and they were actually daughters of they were regarded to be daughters of God. They were worshipped, and the Quran actually is telling these idolaters that have you ever pondered that you have made them up yourselves? These Lat, Manat, and Uzza. Afaraitumul Lata wal Uzza wa Manat as-Salisat al-Ukhra. And these are daughters of God, and you have made them to be God's partners. And whereas you don't like female children for your own self, so this is basically a prelude to that part in which they would ascribe daughters to God, and of course not like daughters for themselves. So it's like telling them that have you ever pondered on their reality? First of all, they don't exist. They are all your own fanciful thoughts. And in the second instance, look what you have done. You're ascribing something to God which you yourself would not like.
Yes, I understand.
Thank
you.
Okay.
We have another written question from the participant, and she want to know, what does pair of man and woman mean? One of the verse in Quran, it mentioned the pair of man and woman. What does
Okay.
pairing means?
Okay, it says وَأَنَّهُ خَلَقَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى, which means that it is He who creates the pair of male and female from a drop when it is poured forth. So what the Almighty is telling us here is that basically man and woman, they have been created by God Himself from a drop of fluid, of course referring to the sperm, the male sperm, which lodges itself into the womb of the female, and then the egg is fertilized and a human being comes out of it. So basically the power of God is being referred to here, that it is not that these deities have created man and woman. It is not that these deities that they are worshipping who give life or death, or who make them laugh or cry, or who give them richness and affluence, or who would have all these things that they ascribe to these daughters. No, all of these things which they ascribe to others are in fact done by God. So it's not these angels who give life and death. It's not the angels who create man and woman. It is God who creates them. So it's like refuting their claim that that God has partners in all these things. I mean, God has partners in the creation of a male or a female. So that is being refuted, and they are being told, no, God alone has created the male and the female species. He doesn't need partners for this creation. Okay, so inshallah, we'll meet next Sunday. Have a pleasant week, and we'll be back with a new surah of the Quran. And until then, it is Khuda Hafiz from your teacher.